Okay, hi there traders. Let's see who is in. Let's type something in there. So just get myself organised a bit. Watching this Hang Seng. Hope the sound is okay. That's a shame. Hang Seng dropped. It's been ticking higher. Pushed through resistance. It sort of just got up and tested again. So it could see some more selling come in. That's something just watching at the moment. Right, so welcome to TradeSetup. It's a live stream for 26th Anzac Day of April. So I hope we all had a good weekend. There's a few, obviously, it's probably going to be a bit quieter today. A few states closed up, but obviously the market's still open with New South Wales and Victoria kicking along. Still back at work. So I hope we're, for the few that have got a long weekend, good luck to you. Hope we're doing well. So if anyone that's new that hasn't joined the stream before, welcome, and just remember it's general advice only. You'll see it on the screen there. And we do our streams basically on a Monday, so we'll see how they keep going. May do a few changes down the track, but we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, if you could follow us on Twitter, you'll link it to us on Twitter. You'll see the top left-hand corner at trade_setup, and we post a few bits and pieces on there. And Facebook, the top right, and also it'll be much appreciated if you subscribe to us at YouTube, which is the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see on the screen at TradeSetup capital AU. Go there, see our stuff, subscribe to us when you get a chance, and just leave us a like on any videos that you tend to, that you watch and you do enjoy. So there's a lot of information on there, a lot of bits and pieces we posted in the way of videos, educational, and or the streams. So anyone that's in a technical mindset or that likes to learn in different ways, jump on there. There's a heap of information for you. Now we'll minimize this, and I'll get into it today. I just want to go over. Let me just do one other thing. I keep forgetting this. Transition, there you go. Just going to make sure I've got the right screen up here. Just going to go through the sectors. Obviously, the ASX is approaching all-time highs. Actually, I'll get up the ASX first and just get onto my view of what I expect. Anyone that's been listening to me for a while knows I'm still quite bullish on it. I still think it's a 5-minute chart. Let's not worry about that. Let me just delete all that. So we've got a clean slate. So we've got all-time highs up here. We've got this sort of level to contend with. It's up to around 71.70, 71.50, just say 71.60. Let's call it something a bit different there. 71.60. You got the Hang Seng just taking off now. So anyone that watches indices, just be very wary when they get flush. They tend to flush levels a lot and then pop and just create that uncertainty with traders chopping him in and out. The algos just run riot on a lot of things, and they do it at stocks a lot, indices. When you can get the bids and offers, you'll see them chop around, especially on shares. You'll see them stack on the offer on the bid too, just trying to create some sort of uncertainty with traders, and create that movement, that volatility. But it happens a lot on the indices. You'll see. So it's just understanding what levels they're chasing, what the price action is saying, and where to find those movements that you can take advantage of. Anyway, so back to the ASX. This is what we've had the big sell-off. We've basically regained a lot of that lost ground, okay, and we're heading back up to the highs. So really, you can sort of, I've been using support, I think it's around here, more than anything. I think we've been bouncing off that support quite well. Coming here, I did expect if that we were going to see a bit of a sell-off. This is what I was watching for a while. Okay, I thought this could hold, but the longer it holds in a channel, the more you have to sort of adjust. And if it doesn't even attempt to get through those lows where you can see, this push down here when it sort of broke and it retested the low, retested, and then retested. This is the important one, the key if you're watching it, retesting at a higher level just in here. And that was on, what was that, the 19th of May. By the time you get that, and then you get, following that another high low after we start to press into the highs, these highs through here, then you've got to adjust. Okay, so it was no longer bearish after there. That had more than enough opportunity to really try to squeeze traders out, but it's just not going to do it. And we started to press up through the highs and then into new highs, not all-time highs. So that's why I'm really biased towards the target, at least to push into new all-time highs. I think everyone's be looking at that. Everyone's be targeting that, whether there's going to be some selling above that level or whether we're going to, really clear it strong and have a bit of a pullback. Before we have a bit of a pullback, clear that level strong, pull back to the level, and then go again. Don't know, but I do really think that we're targeting into new all-time highs on the ASX. There is going to be some swings and roundabouts. We all know that, and it has been very choppy of late. It's been pushing people in and out of the market as the uncertainty. G'day, Pete. As the uncertainty shifts and changes depending on what news you're reading, and it's I do read news. I know that, and it's good to keep abreast of the macro concepts that are happening, not your day-to-day, news headlines that are coming through, because they're only reactive. They're not ever going to help you. I don't think those headlines trade. You've got to trade what you see. If the market you think's going up, don't listen to those negative headlines that are saying it's going down. And there's all that talk of yields, and people are still concerned about yields, and they're going to be concerned about yields if they do pop up. And you read Twitter, you read anything, they'll be saying when yields start to pop up again, which I think they might be teetering on rallying again into US bond yields, we're going to get that correction, because that's what's happened last time. But the market knows that, and the market's, I think it's brushed it aside. We can see gold is very much linked to the yields at the moment and bonds rather than the US dollar as such. The US dollar headed south, should have rallied gold. Gold didn't really move too much because it was pretty much going lockstep with bond yields. So that'd be interesting. If bond yields do go up, you would expect gold to rally. Especially if the US dollar is still heading down, it should get a really kick on. So we'll look at that in a minute. And that's where I started looking at some of these sectors. I think what could drag in with the macro view, which could drag in some interest and provide some sort of high probability setups rather than, something that could get stretched, if that makes sense. I'm always liking to buy into zones after a pullback. These types of areas, when you've got it's coming there, the uncertainty is there. When you're trading around here, it's uncertain. Here's a bit more certainty because you start to get that high low and you've got the press through the highs. The same sort of in here, that uncertainty through there. If you're going to buy, you're going to be looking at nice setups, and I've always got my eye on the ASX. What's happening with the ASX? Because if that looks like it's going to roll over, whereas about here it didn't. So then I had to change my tune where I thought we were going to get a bit of a sell-off. I thought we could get a sell-off, especially if this initial trend up was going to hold. It broke that, went sideways. So as soon as you get sort of that third touch on that low and it rejected it quite savagely, forget about it going through. It's still a bullish market. You just have to readjust your technicals. So that's why we're always saying price action is going to tell you what's going to happen. Okay. And if you don't get that lower high coming into play, a break and then a lower high, you don't even bother selling. And you don't sell on a break of the level because it hasn't shown you. We're not talking about a break of a level. That's a key support zone, and you're getting. Got to draw that up. What are we looking for? Say we've just got a bit of a pullback into the zone like we've got on the ASX. Okay, so we've had these sort of swings, press back into the zone, maybe another swing. Even if you pop through and you come back up, I am not going to look to sell on that break because nothing's really confirmed. That's the first break. You don't really sell because I'm always wary, especially with indices. They'll all flush a level because they know that there's going to be stops on the indices below the zone, and people are going to be trading short on the break. You really do want to see a push through, a decent push through, and then you either trade, the retrace on that. You can potentially put a limit order in there, but I want to be trading with the trend, not on a pullback or on a really weak breakout. I'd rather trade this kind of entry, or at least, if it does plow through, try the first breakout here, the first sort of pullback, what happens, because there's going to be a pullback. You're going to get the breakout, it's going to squeeze any shorts potentially. And if it doesn't, just trap them and squeeze them straight back out in a bullish action like we did here. And it's potentially on this, you'll see this little zone just in there. It broke through and then bounced straight back again. If you drop that down, it was on the, what day was that? The 11th of March. Drop it down to the intraday and you'll see what I'm talking about. Breaks the zone straight back in. Okay, and that's just a trap. That's just trapping shorts because they know there's a level there. It's touched that level twice. It's broken it straight back up. And it's a trap. It's going to trap in some sellers to squeeze them back out. And that's what, if anyone longer term, especially on indices, anyone that's bailed on some positions because they're watching the ASX break a level, expecting the bearish move, they're preempting it. There is no bearish move. They are preempting it. Okay, and that's not what you're going to do when you're trading. You want to trade what you see. So like I said, that's what I'd be looking for, a shoulder. We always bang on about shoulders. Your shoulder in here. Just like to draw that there. Shoulders there. That's a shoulder too, but it's not a shoulder until it confirms a clear break of that level. Okay, so that's the way you want to be trading short. And the same on the long side. So we've got this high low in here, which it led to another break. So you've got touch on here, flush, high low, another high low. So you know that's pretty potentially going to break. Really probably should have loaded up on a bit of a long position there. Yeah, just didn't get around to doing that. Didn't look at that eventually. So yeah, that's why I'm still relatively bullish. You've had this big, sell-off because of wasn't yields what they're talking about, the tax. That tax-induced sell-off, and we put out a video on that. Just looking at it, it's come down to a level basically around 6,700. I think it was 7,000. Yeah, 7,000. A whole number. Touched back on that level, and then it's rallied straight off the level. That rejection on that day. By the time we started the video, it was looking really bearish. By the time I finished that video, it retraced quite a bit, on that session. So when you sort of reject a level like that, it's kind of bullish, right? So if we can get the market, I would expect a consolidation just below the all-time highs and then spike up and through. And that's what I'm looking for. I think the market's still well and truly on the upside. The Dow US is probably Dow this week will start to trade into new all-time highs. S&P did trade into new all-time highs on Friday. Didn't follow through into the close, but it did trade into new all-time highs. Backed off in the last half an hour or so to close slightly under it, but it was up quite strong. From open to close, it was a strong session. So yeah, it's looking quite good. Just bear with me 1 second. Just want to buy into the Hang Seng here. See how that goes. Just a small trade. Just got to change a couple of things. All right. So that's the ASX. Now let's go and look at our sectors now, just to see where we expect something could be playing out. Something could happen. Well, where we expect. I mean, a lot of it for me has got to do with the macro view as well. So I like the gold sector. Oil too hasn't looked so crash hot, but I think there's potential. If I do think oil is going to probably tick higher, have another spike higher, and it is, it's one of those markets which is manipulated. The OPEC don't like it; they cut production. Simple as that. Starts to get a bit of a buoyancy. They might let out some more production just to keep the OPEC, basically the producers, happy. So for me, there could be some. I'll look at that in just a minute, but I do think with oil, a bit of appreciation in oil would be pretty good, and then we might get a bit of it's a good run into oil, to energy shares. But at the moment, it's not looking too crash hot. If we just go over there now, that's a weekly basis. Actually, I'll just draw that up. I'll get to the daily and just draw that up. That's what I want. That's what I want. Just in here. Okay, so it's basically through here. It could have. We're at a level sort of now where it's traded before in the sector. It's come down. It keeps touching that zone. We might flush, down like we did. We sort of did the same thing through here, flush down, retest, and then we start to rally from there. So it's something that you want to keep an eye on, because I do think crude itself is it is squeezing a bit lower, but I think overall longer term it's going to be heading higher. Okay, so that's one that I think there's going to be some more pressure in the short term, but I think longer term, if we can get a bit of a squeeze and we start to break this 85 again, I think that sector is going to start to get a bit of a run up like that. And if we do get that run up, it's going to be sort of an equal move if we can get that, probably somewhere around 10, 10,500, sort of up here. Just don't know if that can play out. But again, we want, you can see, like I said, the selling pressure and the buying pressure. Selling pressure is down. Momentum sort of was sideways for a while. It's just ticking over, just trending sort of into negative territory with momentum. But if we can get buyers start to step in, averaging down, they might, whatever way they trade, with the sector and start to find some support, that could be quite good. So I like these kind of things where it's pressuring down, and we want to try to get in early. We want to take advantage of a move. We don't. I mean, that's just me personally. I don't like buying, when the market's been going like this for a long time. I don't like buying here because it's the move is not unknown. It's well and truly the known. So I'm looking at that thinking, okay, how much room have we got to move on the upside? Um, how much could it keep trending? Is there more people on the sidelines willing to buy it up and um, trigger it for me, trigger it higher for me? But I like to buy when we're coming off a contraction. So ideally, if we're trading here, I would like to see we've had a good trend up. It might be like this. We might pressure. No, that's not really going to help out, is it? Just clear that out. More likely, I'm looking at something like this, and I want to see some sort of flush, and then I want to see, it start to lift again. And I like those kind of setups. When you've had a trend up, had a pullback, it's reconfirming again. Okay, so this might be on the daily, and you're looking for on the weekly is just doing a different color. The weekly is something like this. You had your pullback, and you're looking for that secondary extension on the weekly potentially. And that's the way I would treat my timeframes if I'm trading. If that blue is a 30-minute, maybe that yellow is your daily. If my blue is a 5-minute, maybe I'm trading off the 30-minute, and I'm looking for that 30-minute leg up. So for me, I like to trade off those squeezes when it puts people back on the sidelines and reconfirms again. Now, there's nothing to say it can't just go all the way up, but I tend to steer clear of that because I think the payouts I found for me are not so great, or not as good as buying in where it's more of the unknown, just something into this kind of zone when it's looking to expand. You're going with the trend, whereas here, if you buy, you buy on this little pop up here, just for example, buy here, and it starts to roll over. You're buying sort of against the trend, the shorter term trend. And you might be looking to take some heat. You might really start to cop it a bit. So that's how I'm like to trade into my market. So yeah, in saying all that, I've just got my eye on energy. I'm not even really looking at shares at the moment, because I don't think they're doing too much. There's no setups within shares within the energy sector, but I've got my eye on it. Consumer discretionary, I don't even bother with that. Financials, I think they're getting extended. I do think, with the ASX that's going to trade new highs, it probably lift. Obviously, it's going to lift. Well, they're going to be lifted by financials, but I don't think there's a lot of room to move in that. I don't really fancy jumping on board something that's well and truly extended. If you go look at the weekly trend on that, it's had a big move down, obviously bounced back up, good contraction, and it's had a solid leg up since. And obviously, we start to play, start to fade around 65, especially if the ASX pushes the new all-time highs to sucker some the buyers in, and then turns around and gets belted from there. I do think there's going to be a big move down on the cards sooner or later. It's just from where, and that's what we're always trying to safeguard against. Plan ahead and try to realize what could be happening on the longer term if we are expecting some kind of sell-off. So that's where I'm at the moment with that anyway. All right, just keep an eye on 43. I'm just long on Hang Seng's playing around on that. Nothing major, just want to keep an eye on it. Bit of a pop to 190 would be nice. All right. So that's financials. Let's go over IT. Yeah, it's had a good run up. It's had a good flush lower. I don't fancy that too much just because of the price action. So if you look at this as an individual stock, I wouldn't get in here at all. Okay, I wouldn't get in here. I wouldn't mind it reconfirm if it sits on these MAs. Great. We all know that NASDAQ in the US has had a really good run. It's bouncing back up, But what if yields start to tick over, push higher? That's probably going to cap. Well, it's going to cap the Nasdaq because highly indebted, higher yields, higher debt levels. Um, they don't go well together as yields are looking to rise. Okay, so I don't fancy jumping into this either. Okay, because I think it's just going to go. If Nasdaq obviously starts to roll, I think it's going to bear too well. It's got the. Let me just take some risk off the table there. Just make sure I've got more orders in there. Oh, did I miss taking that order? There we go. All right. So financials, no. I'm particularly IT. The mining, I do like that because I do think the US dollar is going to head south a bit more. Okay, so that's something that we've spoken about quite frequently in the past. US dollar, I think we had that little run up recently on the US dollar because of higher yields, but that soon got knocked on the head. Yields went back up again. So they went back down again. Bonds went back up again. There could be some more yield play again soon, and everyone's talking that up. But that's just it's talk again. I think, like they were saying, as long as the Fed is adamant, they're not going to, they're going to keep supporting the market, and that hasn't changed. I don't think they've spoken time and time again. That's not going to change for a while. So we can sort of forget about um, rising rates for a little time yet. Bond yields can do what they want, but they won't get out of hand because the Fed's not going to do anything. So they're not going to go and sell the hell out of them, thinking that the Fed's going to be pushed into something. They won't. They've already proven that. They tried to, play their hand a bit, see what the Fed did, and the Fed didn't do anything. They were adamant they're going to keep supporting with QE. 83, just looking at it. Probably take some partial. If anyone that's interested, I'm just watching this sort of rally, so I went long in here, just looking for it to pop up a bit more, take some off the table, and then see. Just play it around. It's not actually a live account on that one. I've got it in a different account. That's just my charting package I use a lot. Okay, that's materials. Metals and mining, same sort of thing. They're going consolidating sideways, which is not a bad thing if you're looking at this consolidating and the trend is well and truly established. I like this consolidation because consolidation to me means those highs, if it was going to show some weakness, they should produce that lower high, okay, off that level. But at the moment, it's not. Okay, it's just gonna get that back up. It's actually just consolidating. So I don't mind, once we get some selling pressure coming in, and you'll see this, the selling pressure comes in, market goes sideways. When it starts to come back up, the momentum shifts back to the upside, that will start expanding to the upside. So really, I think anything to do with, for me, resources, metals and mining, very similar type of price action. I'm kind of bullish on that because I do think that stimulus in the US is going to continue to weigh on the dollar. If it can't be supported by yields, it's really the only thing it could. I would expect that US dollar to keep getting pressured, and it's still unwinding a bit of a long bet into the US dollar. People were sort of, the last month or so, will edging into that, edging the US dollar. I think it was bouncing, it did grind up, and it's now unwinding that, and it's still got some more to unwind now. If it unwinds further and breaks through support, it's going to bring in some new shorting, and there's probably going to be some new shorting coming too, because like I said, you've got just massive amounts of stimulus. It's just oversupply of the dollar is going to weigh on that action. So that's me. Utilities, no, heading down. I'm not even bothered with that. Telcom, yeah, not for now. It's consolidating, which is nice. So looking at that weekly, we've had a big sell-off, gone sideways. Look, there could be some movement into that. I'll be keeping an eye on that one as well. Gold's a bigger one for me. I think with gold prices, that actually doesn't look too crash hot there, but there's been a few false starts. The daily is getting back above the MAs, which I like to see. So really, if we can start to hold, we might consolidate through here around 7,000, 7,500 on the sector. If we can consolidate through there and the selling pressure comes in, a bit like we just saw on, whoops, metals and mining, the resources, it's popped up, it's consolidating, and it's ready for another run higher. With gold too, on the daily, if we can get that sort of consolidation here after this kind of a sell-off, I think that's going to be quite good. Okay, so we've had a good move down here, big flush, rallied straight back up. We've had a good sell-off down here, and I see that a lot of people jumping into shares on into gold stocks, but they just weren't doing too much. Okay, every time they jumped in, gold had a $20 rally, it would have a 20 back fall, not a day or two later. So they were jumping in, getting caught out, it was getting sold off. I think there's a few stocks that are actually looking good, but generally, I think as a sector, it needs to sort of confirm a bit better. I wouldn't mind it pushing a little bit higher, or even if if we get sort of this move above the MAs, consolidating above there, and then rallying again, that's going to be good for gold. So if we have a look at gold, just before we move on, gold here, that's on the daily basis. Okay, so for me, we're looking at, I like this sort of this zone. We've been bullish on gold when it starts to consolidate in here, and it's had a bit of a leg up. Now it still has some work to do, but it's a good little zone through there. Okay, so we'll probably forget about this for now. That's kind of the consolidation. So I'm looking for it to potentially pop up to above 18. Continue to grind high, because if it's going to go south, you'll want to see it sort of go from a higher level. But if we start to pull back from here, there's a good chance that we can hold an inside level. Okay. So that's what I'll be looking at. If we start to, just drop a bit from here, we might just bounce off 1754, 1755, retest that and go again. But I'm looking for that extension up. I'm still looking for that extension up. I don't think, and we'll look at, like I said, we'll look at gold just in a minute. So I'm just going to keep an eye on a couple of things. So where is that? Let's just draw a couple of, I think this is the sort of key. We still got that contraction. So that's why I still think that was a good little zone that held in there at 1865, off 1865. Nice little support. We bounced off that support, so I'm sort of looking for it just to head back up here. We might still get some contraction between highs and lows. Run up, pull back, run up, pull back, contracting before we have a decent leg up. So I think that's the key contraction on a daily basis. So we're really just trying to look at it. Go back down to an hourly. Bit of heat coming out of that, but I'm still thinking that will hold up. 1768 thereabouts. That's your sort of shorter term leg up that's still sticking, still holding, and it bounced off this support. We bounced and flushed through that, rallied up. We could flush down, and it doesn't look too crash hot there. So if you're looking at it, you're not really taking note of the bigger picture, then there would have been some shorters in here that's just going to get squeezed out. So if we can keep chopping around here and start to lift back up through these highs, I think it's going to open up for a move back above 18 and continue that move up. If that makes sense. So that's why I don't mind gold at all. If we look at bonds, just to finish up there, if there's anything you want to look at, just chuck in the chat now. Otherwise, nothing too much. We'll probably call it a day nice and early. I know it's a public holiday for a lot of people. Just look at bonds, why it could cap, and it is starting to cap. If you look at the 10-year, a similar price action on Friday night. With that 10-year, I would expect consolidating through here. The yields did rally a bit, and when the yields rally, bonds go inversely. They move down when yields go up. Okay, so yields did pop up a bit. If you're looking at, excuse me, this overall, it is just consolidating through there at the moment. Okay, so it's these lows in here at around 132.10, these lows through here that are holding. Now, if they pop back up, we're just going to range trade at the moment, range between these lows and these highs. Okay, 132.24. Okay, so if that's the case for now, then expect it to react off there, gold to potentially rally up as yields start to reduce again. Okay, start to come down, bonds start to rally. Longer term, yeah, this is rallied off that low. It's not looking too bearish. I'm sort of expecting more of a grind back up, a continued grind up. If you go and let's just look at the daily. The daily's, been sold pretty hard. I'm expecting what we call more back and fill, back up. So you've got shorters in here need to be squeezed out. And I don't think that's much of a squeeze. If you're short from way up here, you're under no pressure whatsoever just at the moment. Okay, and you're breaking some key minor levels on the daily, so you've broken through that zone there, and then we've got, I think it's really going to work up towards that zone up there, at around 133, just above 133. So if that's the case, I'm sort of expecting it to be bouncing roughly where it is at the moment and continue to grind back up. So I think that's going to be more of a grind on the bonds, which would mean gold should start continue to grind up as well. All right, so that's probably about it. That's all I really wanted to get through. Is there anything else you want to take a look at? Is anyone in there that want to have a quick look at some shares? Otherwise, we'll just knock on the head. Give yourselves a day off. It's fairly quiet. Just see where the ASX is. Look, the ASX is doing next to nothing at the moment anyway, so let's just look at that. Up near the highs, just look at the 1 minute chart. It's been sort of fairly rangy. I wouldn't expect the ASX to do too much. It could have a bit of a pop into the close, but we'll see. Nothing much. Okay. What we'll do, we'll just call it a day then. I'll have an earlier session. Thanks very much for joining me, guys. If there's anything else you did that we might have missed, if you've got any further questions on anything that I've just spoken about, yeah, just send us an email to support@tradesetup.com.au and I'll get back to you. Otherwise, have a good day. If you're having a break, have a good end of day. So the rest of the day, relax, and back to work tomorrow. We'll be back in tomorrow anyway, so we'll speak to you again next week, guys. Cheers. Bye.